There is a man in the Bible whose story might be one of the most devastating stories in all of Scripture. His name was Mephibosheth. He was 5 years old when his world collapsed. The day his father Jonathan and his grandfather King Saul died in battle, a nurse grabbed him and ran. In panic, she dropped him. Both of his feet were shattered, and just like that, the boy who was born into one of the most powerful families in all of Israel spent the rest of his early life in a place called Lo-debar, which in Hebrew means a place of no pasture, a wasteland, a nowhere. He grew up hiding there, afraid because in the ancient Near East, when a new king came to power, the first thing he often did was wipe out every living relative of the old dynasty. Mephibosheth did not know that King David was different. He did not know that David had made a covenant with his father Jonathan, a promise that love would never leave their family. So Mephibosheth hid, crippled and afraid, living far beneath what he was actually born into. Most of us are not hiding in a literal wasteland, but if we are honest, many of us have spent years living in a version of Lo-debar, living small and afraid, operating from a deep, unspoken sense that we are damaged goods, that we are not quite enough, and that whatever table exists for the important and the worthy, we are not on the guest list. We patch this feeling with productivity, with performance, and with the relentless pursuit of things that make us feel like we matter. But the feeling never really goes away, does it? The reason that feeling never goes away when you try to fix it from the outside is because the wound is an identity wound. And identity wounds cannot be healed by achievement. They can only be healed by truth. And the truth is this: you are a child of the Most High God. Now, I know that sentence has been said so many times in so many churches that it risks sounding like a bumper sticker. But stay with me for a moment, because the weight of that sentence is extraordinary if you actually let it land. The Apostle John, who knew Jesus more intimately than perhaps anyone else who ever walked the earth, sat down in his old age and wrote these words. He said, "See what great love the Father has lavished on us, that we should be called children of God." And that is what we are. Notice, he did not say we are called children of God as a metaphor or as a motivational phrase. He said, that is what we are. Paul put it this way: the Spirit himself testifies with our spirit that we are God's children. Now, if we are children, then we are heirs, not servants, not admirers from a distance, but heirs. Paul was writing to people who lived under the Roman Empire, where the concept of inheritance and legal sonship carried enormous weight. When a Roman citizen adopted a child, that child received every legal right of a biological son, including the right to the father's name, the father's estate, and the father's protection. Paul was saying, God has done that for you, permanently, irrevocably. This statement speaks to the very nature of what you are, not just what you believe. The philosopher Dallas Willard used to say that the most important thing about a person is what comes to mind when they think about who they fundamentally are, because that belief, more than almost anything else, will shape how they move through the world. Consider Henri Nouwen. Nouwen was one of the most celebrated spiritual writers and theologians of the 20th century. He taught at Notre Dame, at Yale, and at Harvard. He had more academic prestige than most people ever dream of, and by his own account, he was deeply, chronically unhappy. He wrote about the relentless pressure he felt, the pressure to perform, to publish, to be impressive, to justify his place at the table. It was not until he left Harvard in 1986 and moved into L'Arche Daybreak, a community in Canada where he lived alongside people with severe intellectual disabilities, that something broke open in him. The people there did not know he had written 30 books. They did not care. They wanted him to show up, to be present, and to be known. And in that stripping away of every credential he had built his identity on, Nouwen came face to face with a question he had never honestly answered. Who am I when I have nothing to prove? His answer, which became the heart of his most beloved book, The Return of the Prodigal Son, was this: I am the beloved. Not because I earned it, not because I performed well enough, but because that is who I was made to be. We all carry a version of Nouwen's crisis, don't we? The world is extraordinarily good at telling us who we are based on what we produce, what we look like, who likes us, and how far we have climbed. And we absorb those definitions without even realizing it. Epictetus, a man who was literally born a slave in ancient Rome, said that there are things that are up to us and things that are not up to us. What other people think of us is not up to us. What the market says our value is not up to us. But the choice to anchor our identity in something deeper that is up to us entirely. Now, go back to Mephibosheth. One day, a messenger shows up in Lo-debar. David has been asking, is there anyone left from the house of Saul? Not to eliminate them, but to show them kindness because of Jonathan. And so Mephibosheth, frightened, is brought before the king. He bows low and says, "What is your servant that you should notice a dead dog like me?" That is the voice of a man who has spent so long in Lo-debar that Lo-debar has become his identity. He does not even call himself a man. He calls himself a dead dog. But David does not see a dead dog. David sees the son of Jonathan. He sees someone covered by a covenant. And he tells Mephibosheth, "You will eat at my table, not as a guest, not as a charity case, like one of the king's sons." That is what it means to be a child of the Most High God. Not that your life suddenly becomes perfect or painless. Mephibosheth still had broken feet after that day. But he was no longer in the wasteland. He had a seat at the king's table, and that seat was not something he earned. It was something he was given because of the covenant. Here's the thing about covenants in the ancient world. They were not contracts. Contracts expire when one party fails to perform. Covenants are different. They are binding, unconditional, and not subject to renegotiation. The covenant God has made with you, sealed, as Paul writes in Ephesians, by the Holy Spirit as a deposit and a guarantee, is not dependent on your performance. It is dependent on His character. And His character does not change. So let me ask you something before we close. Where is your Lo-debar? What is the story you have been telling yourself about why the table is not for you? Because somewhere between the life you are living and the life you were made for, there is a lie, and that lie has an address. It lives in the gap between what God says you are and what the world or your past or your own voice has told you you are. You are not a dead dog. You are not defined by your brokenness or your fear or your failures. You are not a servant trying to earn a seat. You are an heir. You are a child of the Most High God. And the table, it has always had your name on it. Stop living in the wasteland. The King has been asking about you. And with that, our Christian conversations today come to an end. Thank you for being here. You can help us reach more people with our content by subscribing and interacting with our videos. We thank God for the gift of you. See you next time.